shows that entertain you, and then there are shows that make you feel somewhere deep down that the weird and the different deserve love too. The Munsters was that show. For 2 seasons on CBS, from 1964 to 1966, a family of friendly monsters shuffled through 1313 Mockingbird Lane, utterly baffled by a world that screamed and ran from them. And the joke, the beautiful aching joke at the center of it all, was that they were the most wholesome family on television. But while Mockingbird Lane stayed frozen in memory, the people behind it kept changing. Some went on to extraordinary second chapters. Some faded from the spotlight they'd once filled completely. And some left us, taking with them something irreplaceable. A laugh, a warmth, a particular kind of magic that no remake has ever quite recaptured. Herman Munster is the beating heart of the Munsters. A 7-foot green giant who wept easily, laughed loudly, and loved his family with a sincerity that made the bolts in his neck somehow endearing. Fred Gwynne, born July 10, 1926 in New York City, was 37 years old when filming began. A Harvard-educated, Obie Award-winning stage actor being asked to wear 50 pounds of foam rubber, platform boots, and violet face paint under hot television lights. And he did it without a whisper of complaint, because Gwynne understood something about Herman that the premise alone never could. This wasn't a monster playing at being a man. This was a man who happened to look like a monster. And the difference was everything. What Gwynne brought to Herman was physical comedy of a rare and technically demanding kind. His timing was immaculate. The double take, the slow crumble into tears, the booming laugh that rattled the set. He'd been honing that timing since his Broadway debut in 1952, through Car 54, Where Are You?, through Shakespeare and Tennessee Williams. Herman thematically represents the immigrant experience, the outsider who works hard, plays by the rules, and simply cannot understand why the neighbors keep fainting. Gwynne never let you forget that Herman's confusion was genuine, not stupidity, but innocence. After the Munsters, typecasting tried to swallow him whole. It very nearly succeeded, costing him 2 years of film work. But Gwynne fought back through the stage, winning his Obie, playing Big Daddy in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof and King Claudius in Hamlet for the American Shakespeare Theater. Then film rediscovered him. A chilling turn in Pet Sematary in 1989, the unforgettable sparring match with Joe Pesci as the Southern judge in My Cousin Vinny in 1992. He was also a painter, a sculptor, and a beloved author and illustrator of children's books. The King Who Reigned, A Chocolate Mousse for Dinner, pun-filled little masterpieces that showed the same comic mind that gave Herman his soul. Fred Gwynne died on July 2, 1993, at age 66, of complications from pancreatic cancer, at his home in Taneytown, Maryland. He died 8 days before his 67th birthday. Herman Munster endures because Fred Gwynne made a giant's tenderness feel like the most natural thing in the world. Grandpa is the anarchist at the center of the Munster household, a 378-year-old Count Dracula who mixed potions in the cellar, drove everyone to distraction, and stole every scene he wandered into. Al Lewis, born Abraham Meister on April 30, 1923 in Manhattan, was 40 when the Munsters premiered, though he spent most of his life insisting he'd been born in 1910, a tall tale so committed that it became part of his legend. He may have aged himself on paper to land the role of Grandpa. After all, he was technically 1 year younger than Yvonne DiCarlo, the woman playing his daughter. Classic Al. What Lewis gave Grandpa was something specific and alive. The energy of a man who had genuinely lived, street-smart and fast-talking and utterly delighted by his own mischief. He'd come up through vaudeville, burlesque, Broadway, De Remy with Phil Silvers, and he brought all of it to that basement laboratory. His chemistry with Fred Gwynne was already road-tested from their years together on Car 54, Where Are You? They didn't need to find it on the Munsters. It was already there. Grandpa represents something the show rarely stated aloud: the immigrant grandfather, the eccentric elder, the one who remembers a different world and refuses to fully assimilate into this one. After the show ended, Al Lewis simply refused to stay still. He opened a Greenwich Village restaurant called Grandpa's, hosted Super Scary Saturday on TBS in full grandpa regalia, ran for governor of New York in 1998 on the Green Party ticket, campaigning brilliantly under the name Grandpa Al Lewis and kept a political radio show on WBAI right up until his final months. Al Lewis died on February 3, 2006. His son confirmed he was 82 years old, and the man who had claimed to be 95 went out as he had lived, surrounded by mystery and affection in equal measure. Grandpa endures because Al Lewis made shameless mischief feel like wisdom. Lily Munster is the anchor of the family, the vampire matriarch who managed a haunted house, a husband built in a laboratory, a werewolf son, and a Dracula father, all while maintaining the poise of a woman who had once been the most glamorous star in Hollywood. That last part is not fiction. Yvonne DiCarlo was born Margaret Yvonne Middleton in Vancouver, British Columbia, on September 1, 1922. She was 41 years old when the Munsters began filming. A decade past her peak as a Universal Pictures leading lady, a woman who had starred opposite Charlton Heston in The Ten Commandments, who had dated Howard Hughes, Burt Lancaster, and Ali Khan, whose autobiography would eventually list 22 lovers. She took Lily Munster because she needed the work. Her husband, stuntman Bob Morgan, had been catastrophically injured on the set of How the West Was Won, losing a leg beneath the wheels of a log train, and DiCarlo had spent years at his bedside. The Munsters gave her back a career, and by her own admission, a new audience she never expected to love. What she gave Lily was elegance without irony. She played her, as she famously said, just like Donna Reed. No winking, no camp. A devoted wife who happened to sleep in a coffin and consider a dragon under the stairs perfectly normal. The comedy came from the contrast, and DiCarlo trusted it completely. Lily thematically represents the immigrant mother, the woman who holds the strange and impossible family together simply by refusing to see anything strange about it. Before the Munsters, she had been a genuine star of the 1940s and 50s. Salome, Where She Danced, Brute Force alongside Burt Lancaster, Band of Angels, and The Ten Commandments. After it, she reinvented herself yet again, stepping onto Broadway in 1971 in Stephen Sondheim's Follies, introducing the showstopper I'm Still Here, a song about survival and resilience that felt, to anyone paying attention, like autobiography. She continued working in films and television through the 1990s, doing small, characterful work, right up until a stroke slowed her in 1998. Yvonne DiCarlo died on January 8, 2007, at age 84, of natural causes in Woodland Hills, California. She holds 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Lily Munster endures because Yvonne DiCarlo made unconditional love look effortless, even in widow's weeds. Eddie is the show's youngest soul, a small boy with a widow's peak, pointy ears, and a werewolf's instincts who just wanted his dad to come to his school's parents' night without causing a mass evacuation. Butch Patrick, born Patrick Allen Lilly on August 2, 1953 in Inglewood, California, was just 10 years old when the Munsters premiered. He'd already been working professionally since he was 7, spotted by a talent agent, and run through 2 years of commercials, guest spots, and films opposite Judy Garland and Burt Lancaster. His screen test for Eddie was with Yvonne DiCarlo herself, and when the producer saw his naturally protruding teeth, no prosthetics required, the role was his. What Patrick brought to Eddie was real kid sweetness. Where the first Eddie in the pilot had been written as borderline unpleasant, Patrick made him warm and slightly confused about why the world kept reacting badly to his family. He made you root for the little werewolf, unconditionally. Eddie thematically represents every child who felt different, who loved their family fiercely, and couldn't understand why the outside world couldn't simply accept them. After the Munsters wrapped, Patrick bounced through the late 1960s and early 70s on guest spots, Gunsmoke, The Monkees, My Three Sons, before taking the lead in Lidsville, the Sid and Marty Krofft Saturday morning show from 1971 to 1973. Then the career stalled. The teen idol phase faded, and Patrick, by his own honest accounting, spent decades in serious struggle. Drug and alcohol addiction that ran for roughly 40 years, a near-fatal overdose in November 2010 that became a turning point. He has been clean and sober for nearly 10 years and speaks openly about addiction recovery. He married Layla Murray in 2016 and continues to work in independent film. In 2026, Butch Patrick is 72 years old and still showing up, still Eddie Munster at conventions and car shows, still the little boy who grew into a man who survived himself. Eddie Munster endures because Butch Patrick made the child's unquestioning love for a monstrous family feel like the most innocent truth the show ever told. Marilyn is the show's sharpest joke and its most subversive idea. The beautiful blonde who is treated as the family's tragedy, the plain one, the unfortunate niece whom the Munsters love despite what they consider a terrible affliction, the affliction of being entirely normal. Beverly Jane Ogg, born May 13, 1937 in Ottumwa, Iowa, and known professionally as Beverly Owen, was 27 when she originated the role, a theater-trained actress who had come up through soap operas and guest spots before landing at 1313 Mockingbird Lane. She was there for just 13 episodes. The story of why she left is, in its own way, a love story. She was desperate to get back to New York, to the man she intended to marry, John Stone, who would later go on to help create Sesame Street. According to later accounts, Owen and Stone formulated a plan to get her released from the series, with Al Lewis and Fred Gwynne ultimately going to the producers on her behalf. She left to marry Stone in June 1964. They divorced a decade later. Owen went quiet, earning a master's degree in early American history in 1989, living privately in Vermont for the rest of her life. What she brought to those 13 episodes was an openness and naturalness that established the character's emotional function before Pat Priest ever stepped in. Marilyn, in Owen's hands, was not a punchline. She was a genuinely kind young woman, baffled by the gap between how her family sees her and how the rest of the world does. And Owen found the melancholy underneath the comedy. Beverly Owen died on February 21, 2019 of ovarian cancer at the age of 81 at her home in Vermont. Butch Patrick's tribute, "Beautiful Beverly Owen has left us. What a sweet soul. I had the biggest crush on her. Said everything that needed saying." Marilyn's original warmth endures because Beverly Owen made the normal feel as extraordinary as anything else on that stage. When Beverly Owen left, the producers needed a replacement who could step into the role without the audience noticing the seam. Patricia Ann Priest, born August 15, 1936, in Bountiful, Utah, was 27 when she got the call. She tested on a Wednesday, signed on a Friday, and started work on Monday. Most viewers never registered the change at all. Pat Priest carried Marilyn for 57 episodes, the vast majority of the show's run. And what she brought was something slightly different from Owen's quieter naturalism. Priest had a radiance to her, a particular combination of warmth and unflappable good humor that kept Marilyn from ever becoming a one-note joke. She was excluded from the theatrical feature Munster, Go Home in 1966, replaced by a younger actress the studio wanted to promote, and it stung. Fred Gwynne and Al Lewis went to bat for her. It didn't change the outcome. That kind of grace under disappointment would become something of a signature. Her post-Munsters career included guest appearances on Perry Mason, Bewitched, and The Mary Tyler Moore Show, and a memorable turn opposite Elvis Presley in Easy Come Easy Go in 1967. Elvis himself, reportedly, tried to give her a car. By the late 1970s, she stepped away from Hollywood entirely, moved to Idaho, restored homes, ran an antiques business, raised 2 sons. In 2001, Priest was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a battle she fought and survived. She has continued to attend fan conventions alongside Butch Patrick for years, sharing the stories of 1313 Mockingbird Lane with generations of people who grew up watching. In 2026, Pat Priest is 89 years old, the last surviving adult member of the core Munsters family. She took part in Rob Zombie's 2022 Munsters reboot, voicing the Transylvania Airlines announcer, a small gesture of connection to the show that never quite let her go, and that she never quite let go of either. Marilyn Munster endures in Pat Priest's hands because she made the outsider's grace feel like the most powerful thing in any room. If Grandpa was the family's mad scientist, Dr. Edward Dudley was Mockingbird Heights' most put-upon general practitioner, a nearsighted, chronically startled physician who kept treating Herman Munster with the increasingly desperate expression of a man who had chosen entirely the wrong profession. Paul Lynde, born June 13, 1926 in Mount Vernon, Ohio, was 38 when he appeared in 3 episodes of the Munsters' first season, and he was already one of the sharpest comedic weapons in television. What he brought to Dr. Dudley was his signature quality, the elaborate, tightly wound fussiness of a man perpetually aggrieved by a world that refuses to behave. Lynde's particular genius was physical and vocal at once. That distinctive nasal cadence, the way he could build a one-liner from a silence, the sniggering laugh that preceded the punchline like a warning. He'd come from Broadway. Bye Bye Birdie in 1960, a role he reprised in the 1963 film, and he understood how to play a house. His Munsters episodes are small masterclasses in reaction comedy. He anchors the joke not by being frightened, but by being deeply, personally insulted by Herman's existence. The distinction sounds minor. On screen, it's everything. Dr. Dudley thematically represents the ordinary world, a man standing for rationality and normalcy, undone not by malice, but by an encounter with something his categories simply cannot contain. After the Munsters, Lynde became the center square on the Hollywood squares, appearing in over 1,000 episodes across 13 years and building a second career out of weaponized wit. His recurring role as Uncle Arthur on Bewitched made him a household name to a generation of children who recognized his laugh before they knew his face. He voiced Templeton the Rat in Charlotte's Web. He seemed to be everywhere simultaneously. The Private Story was harder. Lynde struggled with loneliness and alcohol throughout his career. A man whose barely coded comedy about not fitting in was, by every account, not entirely a performance. He was found dead in his Beverly Hills home on January 11, 1982, at the age of 55, of a massive heart attack. He had failed to attend a friend's birthday celebration the night before. When no one could reach him, a friend broke through his side entrance and found him in his bed. He never publicly came out during his lifetime. He was one of the funniest performers of the 20th century. Dr. Dudley endures because Paul Lynde made barely contained exasperation feel like the most human response in the room. Time moved through the people of the Munsters the way it moves through everyone, unevenly, without warning, and without asking permission. Fred Gwynne left in 1993, taken far too soon at 66, when he had so much more to give the stage and the screen. Al Lewis went in 2006, a force of nature right up until the end, still broadcasting, still arguing, still absolutely certain he had the better point. Yvonne DiCarlo followed a year later, 84 years old, 2 Hollywood Walk of Fame stars to her name, a life and a career that had survived everything the industry could throw at a woman who aged past what Hollywood considered useful. Beverly Owen left us in 2019, quietly, in Vermont, a decade after she'd earned a history degree and lived the life she wanted. And Paul Lynde went too soon, in 1982 at 55. A man whose laughter was his armor and whose loneliness nobody who watched him on screen would have guessed. Some kept shining, some fought private battles, and some are now gone. What remains, today in 2026, are Butch Patrick at 72, still Eddie, still at the conventions, still talking about the dragon under the stairs with the warmth of a man who knows exactly how lucky he was. And Pat Priest at 89, the last woman standing at 1313 Mockingbird Lane, the one the show tried to replace and couldn't quite diminish, living quietly in Idaho and watching the world she helped make still reaching new generations of people who need to believe that the strange and the different can belong somewhere. They can. They always could. That was the whole point. So which Munster do you remember most? Drop it in the comments right now. Herman, Lily, Grandpa, Eddie, or Marilyn? And if you grew up with this show, or found it later, or just stumbled into this video at 2 in the morning, welcome. This is Retro Rewind. We're glad you're here. Hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell, because every week we come back to the stories behind the shows and the people who made them, and we promise we will never stop treating them with the love they deserve. We'll see you next time.